Next up, one of the most talked about people this week, Bill Nye, the self-appointed science guy that isn't actually a scientist. He did get a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and did work as an engineer for a few years, but he's actually spent most of his life pursuing stand-up comedy because science. Now, this isn't to say that the guy doesn't know science. This is just pointing out that Bill Nye isn't a scientist and doesn't actually have expertise in any field except for mechanical engineering. Just putting that out there. So Bill Nye has a new Netflix show called Bill Nye Saves the World that has no agenda whatsoever. Wink, wink. The show currently has a whopping 4.2 stars on IMDb. The whole first 6 pages of reviews are only 1 and 2 stars, with review titles such as Degenerate Filth and Where's the Science? I actually had to go 7 pages deep to find a positive review. And why's that? Well, on one episode, Nye and a panel of various academics were discussing the carbon footprints of Nigeria versus the United States, and Nye piped up to suggest that the government penalize people in developed countries for having extra kids.
So should we have policies that penalize people for having extra kids in the developed world?
And one of the panelists actually agreed with him.
Well, I do think that we should at least consider it.
Luckily, the 2 women panelists pointed out the whole issue of human rights and America's history with forced sterilization and how badly that went. Though if you've been following Nye throughout the years, these ideas probably don't come as a surprise, as there was also that time that he suggested jailing people he calls climate denialists. Because science! But the biggest uproar is over an episode that focuses on gender and sexuality as being on a spectrum. The segment starts with a Christian vanilla ice cream cone in an ice cream conversion therapy group trying to convince everyone else that vanilla is the right ice cream.
And as vanilla, I feel that I am the most natural of the ice creams, and therefore the rest of you should just go ahead and also be vanilla.
And then all the other flavors argue and eventually convince him otherwise, and they all come together in a big ice cream orgy with a laugh track. Now, there is some truth to this whole spectrum idea, theoretically. Alfred Kinsey, a biologist and sexologist, developed the Kinsey scale that measures sexual orientation on a 0 to 6 point scale, but that scale is exclusively for sexuality and not gender. But Nye uses a set of creepy glow-in-the-dark mannequins to try and apply that same spectrum to gender, and actually using the words interchangeably, saying that anyone who doesn't agree doesn't listen to science. Science. And this part's important. He says this while the mannequins are labeled as XX and XY, but with other variations of XXY, XXXY, and X. Except these examples that he gives are Klinefelter's syndrome, Turner syndrome, and XXXY syndrome, which are all rare genetic disorders often accompanied by various other cognitive, medical, and developmental issues. So, science? There was also that really awkward spoken word dance segment thing that was really off tune called Sex Junk.
'Cause my sex junk is so much more than either
with lyrics like,
there's nothing taboo about a sex stew.
And a mention of Gerard Depardieu, probably just because it rhymed. So yeah, that happened. I'll link it in the description for anyone who feels like being really, really uncomfortable. In other news, Antifa is at it again and destroyed fascism this week by forcing Portland to cancel its annual Rose Festival parade. The Multnomah County Republican Party was set to march in this year's parade, which enraged Antifa so much that they arranged protests for the festival and promised to disrupt the parade. Then, someone not from those groups sent organizers a threatening email telling them to cancel the GOP group's registration or else. The email referenced the riots in Portland just after the election and said that if the group marched, 200 Antifa members would rush the crowd and drag Republicans through the streets. But remember, kids, they're against fascism. The county Republican Party said in a statement that the city was choosing terrorist thugs over protecting average citizens who only want to participate in their community. Over in Berkeley, the violence prompted the college to cancel Ann Coulter's appearance, which was scheduled for today. A rally was scheduled at 2 p.m. at Civic Center Park, with Gavin McInnes saying he would be making an appearance. Because of scheduling issues this week, I'm having to film Thursday instead of Friday, so some of the fallout of this will be covered in a follow-up video. But university police said they were preparing for violence to break out again. And up until yesterday, Coulter suggested she might still visit the campus as well, but has since changed her mind, partly due to Young America's Foundation pulling their support for the event. As of the time of this filming, there have already been a few arrests, a couple due to weapons violations, and one due to a protester wearing a mask. There's not much out on the news waves yet about what exactly happened, but Gavin McInnes posted to Twitter around 3 p.m. that Antifa was throwing actual feces at conservative protesters. UC Berkeley has also released a statement that by canceling the event, they were protecting free speech because police didn't believe event goers could be protected. Kind of a weird argument, and the International Socialist Organization planned an alt-right delete rally outside the university campus to show support for free speech by using a tagline about deleting an entire type of thought. Coulter has called the school the graveyard of the First Amendment, and in response to all the shenanigans, the Young America's Foundation has filed a federal lawsuit against the school. The American Health Care Act has been resuscitated and has now gained the support of the House Freedom Caucus. But the measure still doesn't seem to have enough votes, as what pulled the Freedom Caucus on board pushed a bunch of other Republicans off. Amendments to the bill would create a system of state-based opt-outs, which might sound good except for in the fine print, requiring states to apply for special federal permission and only allowing them to opt out of 2 specific parts of Obamacare. To be granted the waiver, states would also have to prove that they could reduce insurance premiums or increase coverage. So, meh. Originally, Trump and company wanted a vote before Saturday, which marks his 100th day, but Democrats threatened another government shutdown if the vote happened. Please! Oh, it's my birthday next week. Can I please, can I have a shutdown for my birthday, please? Remember back in 2013 when Democrats blamed the shutdown on Republicans not doing their jobs? The government was closed for 16 days. It was beautiful. And no one died. No vote has been scheduled as of today, but probably only because Paul Ryan doesn't want to be embarrassed again. Originally, the Dems were threatening a shutdown over the border wall, but that got postponed. So now this is a new threat, for those of you who want to keep track. Also out this week is the outline for what officials are calling the biggest tax cut in U.S. history. I mean, it's big, huge. Nobody does tax cuts this big. The plan would cut corporate, small business, and partnership taxes to 15%, which would be really great because personally, I'd like to keep more of my money instead of wondering why my gross keeps going up, but my net after taxes is the same as when I was making only $14 an hour. The Democrats are, of course, against it because my fair share, social contract, kill the rich, or something. Ultimately, the plan would not only lower taxes for most people and businesses, eliminate the death tax and Obamacare tax, but also simplify the tax brackets from 7 down to 3. What people are mostly freaking out about is that Trump doesn't plan to add in more taxes anywhere else to pay for the cuts. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin claims the plan will pay for itself in economic growth alone, which is probably an exaggeration. But the current corporate tax rate is the highest in the world at 35% or 39% with state taxes, and the point at which corporate tax loses the government money is about 26%. So there's plenty of room for cuts. That is where I'm going to leave it for today, so that concludes your Liberty-related news for the week. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're over on YouTube, or throw me some upvotes if you're over on VidMe. And if you really like my videos and want to help me spread the message of liberty, you can also help me by supporting me on Patreon. Until next week, thanks for watching and helping to keep the message of liberty alive.